understanding the things that you can control when life and the property market can feel so uncertain is what you are inputting into your life. Welcome to the Property Mindset Podcast, where I'm Emma Howitt, mentor, investor, and your guide to building wealth, freedom, and personal transformation through property. Property is not just about bricks and mortar. It really is about building the life that you truly desire. And in this space, we don't just talk about strategy, we deep dive into mindset. And this is something that I found is often missing in other industries, but it's been a real game changer in the professional property circles. So today we are talking about the three things that you can control when life feels uncertain. Okay. So this episode is definitely for you if things feel a bit wobbly right now. Maybe a refinancing has become harder. Maybe a property is not selling as quickly as you wanted it to. Deals are taking longer. Regulations are changing, and you're juggling perhaps property with your family, with health, with your job. And instead of spiraling with the what ifs and doom scrolling on the property forums, I'm really going to walk you through three practical things that you can pull on and really learn to focus on what is genuinely in your control, enabling you to feel calmer, clearer, and more powerful, even when the market feels really chaotic. So let's turn dreams into actions and actions into success. Three things that you can truly control when life feels really chaotic, really uncertain, and maybe you don't feel in control. So the first thing is your inputs. What do you actually feed your mind and your property day? Now, this is really, really key is understanding the things that you can control when life and the property market can feel so uncertain is what you are inputting into your life. So what does that mean? What are you consuming? What are you listening to? What are you jumping on the bandwagon of? And what are you repeatedly doing each day? So you might have things that are changing constantly, interest rates, lending criteria, regulations. And this can unknowingly, for investors, landlords, can really kind of crank up their anxiety. And it really sort of floods themselves with kind of the worst thoughts, the worst inputs. It may feel that just every headline is doom laden. One of my things was all about people saying, oh, the market is dead. Listening and being really active in WhatsApp groups. And there's a lot of people that excuse me, are kind of really recycling fear and making people feel really worried. And sometimes that's good for selling courses, but it's not good for your personal well-being. Um, and as much as you feel like you really need to stay informed, it can often lead you feeling really overwhelmed, almost paralyzed in going forward. So, of course, you absolutely cannot control the Bank of England's next move, but you can control how often, you check into those things. You can't control exactly what deals are in front of you in Rightmove, in Property Filter, but you can control whether you're analyzing, deals, whether you're speaking to agents and making offers. So kind of ask yourself, what am I literally taking in? What am I consuming in the property space? Is it leaving me more anxious? Is it leaving me more in the overwhelm? And what could I perhaps consume instead that makes me feel more informed, more skilled, more knowledgeable, and perhaps more grounded? I'll give an example of this. One of my lovely mentees, the other day she was saying, "Oh goodness, there's some posts in WhatsApp, and it was all about how, these deals weren't working, and, you know, there's just it's not gonna work for a buy to let, and it's not gonna work for this and that. And she was really worried, and really kind of it was consuming her. And rather than being active moving forward with what we discussed, she felt very stuck by it. So we just sort of had a chat through, and we went through, well, is that real or is that not? And that's always a great place to start. But then what we decided to do is to really concentrate. She's doing deal sourcing, to really concentrate on Site Finder. I absolutely love Site Finder. And anyway, so a few weeks later, I saw her again, and she really proudly said, I have stopped listening to those WhatsApp groups, and I've absolutely thrown myself into these other groups where it's really positive. Everyone's discussing deals. Obviously, they're discussing them realistically, but she felt totally different from that. And so these are the things that is so important, cut back on any kind of sensational property Facebook groups or WhatsApp groups, and replace them with ones that have like really just solid data sources, or even a good book, or, a course that helps you build your competencies in that area. I think scheduling focus time each week for calling agents, doing deal analysis, reviewing perhaps your portfolio performance, rather than waiting for spare time, can often leave you feeling unnerved about things. Because if there is something changing, if there is something that you're worried about, it's much better to face it. And I always talk about scheduling time in your diary to do these things. Like, we're all really busy, so make sure you schedule in that time and do it. And this is huge, and actually this has been big for me. Protecting your basics, um, which enables you to be resilient. So one of those is sleep. Quick story, I had my daughter's friends come for a sleepover, and at 2 in the morning, the cat brought in a frog, and they were up making a home for it. And literally, I must have had about 4 hours sleep at night. And I really had to be aware of how I was behaving that day, how I was feeling. Because for me, once I get to that 4 or 5 hour mark, I'm really, really struggling. So I hope that doesn't happen to you. So, yeah, these basic things that help you keep resilient would be sleep, movement, getting that exercise done, getting out, walking the dog, whatever is needed, running up and down a block of flats if you're doing a viewing, always great. Hydration, perhaps journaling works for you. Um, and yeah, all of these kind of things that you learn over time help you protect that basic resilience, because things can be thrown at us, can't they? And on those strong days, it's like, yeah, water off a duck's back, no problems at all. But those days when you are tired and you feel like you've had a pounding, it's really hard, isn't it? So, yeah, really work on that. I've got a great quote by Steve Maraboli. Life doesn't get easier or more forgiving. We get stronger and more resilient. That's really lovely. I like that. I'm going to read it again. Life doesn't get easier or more forgiving. We get stronger and more resilient. Really great. And a good book recommendation for you: The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. And this is a really kind of like a guide to turning those setbacks that come your way and those obstacles to actually fuel your progress. It's really a great book for property investors dealing with those day to day delays, refusals, market changes. So I'd highly recommend The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. So do think about, how am I going to make that simple change this week? I'm going to literally cut out that really unhelpful WhatsApp group and input something more positive, perhaps a new book, a podcast, or a data source. In fact, I was looking through LinkedIn this morning, and it was talking about how uh, this was January currently, but this January compared to 2 years ago, the sales are massively up across most of the country. So things like that, that is something positive that I want to see, as long as it comes from a genuinely good source. So that was thing number one. Thing number two is your interpretation. So, what is this? The story that you tell yourself about these property events. So, this is really something that you can control. And it's so interesting. I find people's interpretations so amazing. I did a short, gosh, quite a while ago. And it was one where my daughter and I driving along the road and the snow was starting to melt. And so for me, I'm thinking, oh, thank goodness for this. The snow is melting. We've got animals, it makes it so much easier. Anyway, we came to a road where most of the houses still had snow on them. But there was one particular house where pretty much the snow had gone. And she said, oh, I feel so sorry for that house where there's no snow. I was thinking, really? And she was like, oh, they must be so disappointed that they can't be playing with the snow anymore. So, isn't that interesting? Just something so simple that one person thinks it's a great thing and one person doesn't. So, two investors can experience exactly the same event. A deal can fall through, planning can get refused, a tenant can leave unexpectedly, and we can absolutely walk away with completely different meanings to that. You know, one might go, "Oh, nothing works for me. This is so awful. What am I gonna do? I think the market's broken. I'm not cut out for this rubbish. I think I should just sell up." Yeah? Whereas another might say, "Wow, that is really annoying." Yes. But actually, what it does show me is this particular tenant just wasn't right for my HMO, for instance. And I know that next time I'm going to do much better due diligence, or I'm going to do much better with my pipeline for a deal, or I'm going to do much better with having a cash buffer. If you're ready to take your property journey to the next level, check out my Property Success Mindset Formula. It's a course on Udemy, and inside you'll discover actionable strategies and exercises designed to shift your thinking, boost your confidence, and help you navigate property challenges with clarity. Whether you're just starting out or looking to break through to a new level, this course delivers the mindset tools professional investors use every day. Visit the link in the show notes to unlock your property potential. Your biggest asset is not just your portfolio, but the way you think. So these are the things that are so key to the way you look at it. So can you see one person's literally life's over by this one thing that's happened, and somebody else can really look at those positives that come out of it. And I know that can sound like, oh yeah, there's look, we've got food on the table and there's people starving in Africa. I don't know if your parents always said that to you. But the fact is, it is the way we look at life is what we get back. Happy people see happy things. Boring people do boring things and are boring. So if you want to be happy or you want to be a fun person, you got to look for the fun and you got to behave in a fun way. You definitely cannot choose the events that happen to you, but you can absolutely kind of train the way that you talk about it to yourself. So, really notice those stories that you say to yourself. So, are you saying, oh, I always pick the wrong deals, or lenders never want to work with me, or it's harder for me than everyone else? We've all had a bit of a pity party. But another one of my mentees, actually, she was been trying to get a really quite small mortgage to fund a project. Anyway, she was getting knocked back left, right, and centre for various reasons. And they were quite high interest rates. Anyway, somebody then found a way, and actually, she was able to borrow a little bit more at a really great rate. And she is absolutely ecstatic, but she definitely just kept persistently working forward and we kept really helping her. There will be a way, we will find something. And she absolutely did. And so it's always, she could have just given up. Oh, I've given up, but she just kept going and she found a solution. And these are the things between really successful people and people who perhaps are not as successful. So, does this feel kind of true to you? And especially when you're kind of tired and triggered, we can really come up with these massive excuses, can't we? But, quite honestly, lots of them are actually rarely accurate. And I think there's some kind of study that talks about people that worry about things. And it's something like literally the majority of things that we worry about never happen. So inherently, it was just a waste of time. So just don't worry about it. Just get on with it and do what you can. So instead of having this kind of negative thoughts that come up, perhaps ask yourself some questions that, will help you interpret what is happening to you. Maybe something like, what is this experience teaching me? Like, is it the way I'm structuring my deal or managing risks? Can I change that? If this setback, might really strengthen the way I invest long term, what could I actually take away from this experience that I'm going to? And it also might be where, what happened with my processes here? Where was the breakdown? And perhaps where can I upgrade this? So there's lots of things to kind of think about there. Now, this is a quote that's attributed to Albert Einstein. He said, "In the middle of every difficulty lies opportunity. In the middle of every difficulty lies opportunity." I also have a great book recommendation, which is Option B, Facing Adversity, Building Resilience, and Finding Joy by Sheryl Sandberg and Adam Grant. It's definitely not a property book. It's so powerful, about a framework for rebuilding and reframing when life doesn't go to plan. And as we know, we have to expect that life does not go to plan. Um, so what are kind of practical tips we can take from here? So, look at something that's happened recently, property disappointment, maybe a deal fell apart, maybe a builder issue, maybe a tenant issue, and really write down the facts. Okay. And then think about and write down the story, the original story that you told yourself, and actually think, well, is there a more constructive story that is also true that I can tell you, that I can tell myself? So, this is a really, really amazing kind of thing to do to help you see that there are so many sides to the story and go and look at them. So, thing three to help you is your effort and character. And this is all about how you show up in your property role. Now, we all know that there are some people that you want to kind of avoid a little bit because they're a bit miserable. All they ever talk about is how terrible the property market is and how their deals are falling through. And then you speak to other people who have deals falling through, have things go wrong, but they're so upbeat, aren't they? They're lovely to talk to, they're solution finders, and they're people that you want to spend time with. So really think about, where are you when you're at that networking event? Are you listening to others, forging relationships, and talking positively about the things that are happening to you? Or are you that one that's just like, vomiting up all the terrible things that have gone on? And let's be fair, I'm not saying that you mustn't ever say, but it's kind of how you show up, how you are. Okay. And it can be quite showing for those relationships that you make with people. You can control whether you are someone that people can trust. You can control whether you are someone who people genuinely enjoy being around. I had a loss adjuster around the other day, and I was clearly saying something that wasn't appropriate. And she said, "Look, you seem like a really nice person. I would highly recommend that you say this perhaps rather than this." And I was like, wow, one, how lovely for somebody to say, I'm a nice person. I mean, that's a nice thing to hear, isn't it? And two, it was the fact that I made a real effort to be really nice to her that, something positive came back. So, think about your relationships with agents, brokers, investors. When you say you'll do something, even when you've had a rough day, make sure you show up as that person that you really want to be. You know, when you're talking about kind of numbers, risks, timelines, you know, don't sort of oversell, but just be very yourself. Really say it as it is and be that person that people want to work with. How do you treat your tenants? How do you treat your tradespeople? How do you treat your partners? Even when you feel under pressure. Okay. And I think these are really key. I've got a business partner, and one of the things that we did during some really harsh times was when things went wrong, there was no blame. It was very much what has gone wrong, and how can we resolve it? Because it's happened. Yeah, somebody might have done something wrong, but we're all human. We're all going to do things wrong. Okay. And I think what is something that makes you feel really proud is when the tough times come, if your reputation is still there as somebody who is a great person, who's resilient and who can work through things, who would you rather work with? Somebody like that, or somebody who's just, in a pity party and is just constantly telling everyone how terrible things are? So Mary Holloway said this quote: "Resilience is knowing that you are the only one that has the power and the responsibility to pick yourself up." Resilience is knowing that you are the only one that has the power and the responsibility to pick yourself up. Oh my gosh, sometimes you would like to just be picked up though, wouldn't you? Um, so a book recommendation is Grit, The Power of Passion and Perseverance, and that's by Angela Duckworth. It is a very much a researched back look at why long-term success comes more from kind of sustained effort and passion than talent. And you'll hear that a lot. You'll hear top sports people say, I am not the most talented person here, but I am the most, I'm the one that made the most effort. I'm the one that turned up every day. I'm the one that worked through those bruises, worked through those blisters. And so staying that course in the long game, especially around property, is so, so key. So I would ask yourself, thinking about your future self. So let's say 5 years from now, and you're looking back and watching how you handled this particular time in your property journey. When you're feeling uncertain, when you're feeling there's a bit of chaos, when you're feeling overwhelmed, what would you be proud of? What kind of standards would you set for yourself? What efforts have you made that you can look back and say, you know what, that was a bit of a tough time, but I really, really am so proud of the way I behaved and handled myself. So absolutely, you're not going to be able to control, who says yes to you today, but you can control whether you are that type of person who agents call first, who investors stick with, and who tenants respect. And it is within your control, especially if you have uncertain times. So do remember these three things that you can control when life feels uncertain. So, thing one is your inputs. What are you feeding your mind? How are you structuring your property days? Thing two is how do you interpret your interpretation? It's the stories that you tell yourself about setbacks, about delays, and about changes. And thing three is your effort, your character, the way you show up. And that's regardless of market ups and downs. So do remember, property isn't just about what you do, it's about how you think and who you become in the process. And when you combine a strong strategy with a resilient, grounded mindset, there's literally no limit to what you can achieve over the long term. So do reflect on today's episode and consider, what is one action that you can take this week, today, to shift your focus back on what you can control in your property journey. And if this episode has reminded you that you have real power over what you focus on, especially how you think, how you show up, even when life in the market feels uncertain, then I've got a great another episode to go and listen to. It's episode 31 and it's titled "I'll Never Leave: When a Tenant Played the System and How I Fought Back." In this episode, I share a very real tenant and a very real tenant challenge. And I walk you through how I use my mindset, problem solving, and resilience to navigate really what was a very stressful situation. I was able to protect my property and support everyone who was being affected by this, everyone who was involved. So if you're ready to see how focusing on solutions instead of pressing that panic button, and you want some real life examples, then episode 31 will really help you in your property journey. As always, let's turn dreams into actions and actions into success.